Welcome to The Real Life Buyer. In this podcast, you will discover interviews with procurement and technical experts, business owners, entrepreneurs, and thought leaders. These experts will help you to develop and grow, accelerate your career, improve your business, save money, and buy smart. Now introducing The Real Life Buyer, Dave Barr.
Hello and welcome to The Real Life Buyer. Today, I'm excited to introduce you to Maureen Mwangi from the state of Texas. Maureen was born in Kenya to entrepreneurial parents with a flair for business success. Being surrounded by innovation, energy, and business competence, Maureen was soon learning and contributing to the family business and was drawn to product development and marketing. It wasn't long before Maureen then moved to the US to study for a master's degree in marketing. Having proven her marketing expertise and acumen, today Maureen is a highly sought-after brand growth expert due to her unique track record for launching and scaling notorious brands. She's the creator of the Big Brand Academy, the Product Profit Lab, and Startward Consulting, and has her own podcast called The Product Entrepreneur. As we appear to be slowly emerging from the pandemic, I can see many new and exciting businesses and entrepreneurs wanting to develop and release new products onto the market, but with the constraints of perhaps a small budget. So what I would like to discuss today with Maureen is how to go about launching products from the concept to the cash register in a scrappy kind of way. So without further ado, I am delighted to welcome Maureen onto the podcast. Hello, Maureen.
Hello. Thank you so much for introducing me. That was a perfect introduction to my experience so far.
Excellent. That always helps. So, Maureen, obviously you're born in Kenya. Would you mind telling us a bit about your life growing up in Kenya under the tutelage of entrepreneurial parents and how this background drove your passion for a career in marketing and branding?
Yes. So I grew up in a family of entrepreneurship. So my entrepreneurship journey literally started at the dinner table as a young girl at the age of 12 to 14. And my parents really experienced challenges building, growing, and scaling their physical product-based business. So for what they do there in Kenya is that they have a building and construction supply company where they really work with contractors, developers to supply products that they can use to build homes. And at the point in time when they started experiencing challenges, it's because of the surge of counterfeit products from China. And because of them being very seasoned, the markets become so easy to get access to. So it didn't matter how long you had been in business. Anybody could literally copy and paste what you were doing before. And that point in time, they did start seeing a dip in sales, a dip in revenue. And one thing that they constantly were talking about is how do we build a brand and market it to the right people so we can continue maintaining our status and continue maintaining our name. So hearing those challenges, I was like, what is so hard about branding and marketing? Because, when you hear branding, it sounds like it's such an easy thing. And I think that's actually what sparked my interest in marketing, which now led me to pursue a master's degree in the US, where I really focused on marketing analytics, where we learned about identifying opportunities for growth, identifying a product that would actually sell, understanding how to translate a concept into a product that becomes a physical product in the store. And now I got the opportunity to work at different agencies in the US, got opportunities to work with different clients, different brands like L'Oreal, Chobani, Dove, and Lay's. And I got the understanding of how big brands do branding in order to maintain their market share. And with that knowledge, I started applying it into my parents' existing business. And they did start seeing an uptick. They did start seeing some changes. And that sparked my mind. I'm like, I could actually do this for other emerging brands. And that's what led me to create Startward Consulting, which is a consulting agency that's dedicated to teaching product-based entrepreneurs the sales and marketing strategies they need in order to turn their beloved product brands into new household names.
Oh, sounds great. When we tend to think of big brands, we tend to think of big budgets.
Yes.
So what you're saying is that, is it possible for somebody on a kind of shoestring, as we would say in the UK, to really get a foothold and be able to market their product successfully without needing a big budget?
Yes, it's such a great question because many people hear the big brands, they think big budgets, but also big brands have small brands. And I've been at the center of being part of a team that developed a concept, put it out in the market. One concept worked, one concept didn't work. So every brand you see has gone through its life cycles and its life stages. And so I usually challenge entrepreneurs to understand that the fact that they're a big brand, that brand was actually a small brand. So the principles are actually the same. It's just how willing are you to adapt to what the market is telling you? How willing are you to adapt to what consumers are saying in order to continue seeing the success that all brands usually tend to have?
Yeah. Okay. And would you say that just thinking of people now are expecting to be able to put something out there and suddenly have it be successful? It suddenly hits everybody's screens, wherever they may be, but the reality can be somewhat different. So should people have an expectation of this is a really long road to success?
Yes. It is a very long road to success. It's the same thing many people say, that entrepreneurship is a marathon, not a sprint. Because if you think about how the world is changing, how consumer behavior is changing, you have to be willing to adapt and be agile in order to see success. There's no way you can launch a product and expect it to be a one-hit wonder overnight. Nothing has ever happened overnight, and the success you're seeing for many of these brands, it probably taken 10 plus 15 years in the making. Yeah. So I usually say that if you're getting into this space of building a brand, building a physical product-based business, literally have a longer term vision. And that's why for me, brand building is so passionate, because when you get into this market, knowing that you're building a brand, you're more willing to stand the test of time than somebody who's just willing to just come into the market and make money immediately. Yeah. Because we all understand building a brand takes a period of time. And so when you get into this space with that mindset, you're willing to learn, you're willing to be coachable, you're willing to adapt. And that's when you start seeing the success that you never imagined.
Yeah. The thing is I guess with a very long-term project, people have to have that right mindset and be prepared for that. Otherwise, it's so easy after one or two failures to say, hey, I'm just no good at this. The product's clearly no good. And so it's time to give up.
Mm-hmm, exactly. And so you just really have to be intentional when you're getting into this space,
So thinking about those people who are sat around their kitchen table, quite often mum and pop type situations, they may even be working in a full-time or part-time job, and they have a product idea. And of course, we all sit around the table and we sketch out things and come out with things to do. But really, where should people start in their research and planning? How do they identify their target market? Should they look at competitors first? What's the starting point for this journey?
So basically, the first thing that somebody needs to do is really understand the product in and out. Understand, what does the product do? What are the features that are in this product? What are the benefits of those features in the product? And why would somebody actually want this product? Right. So I'm going to give an example. Let's say you want to start a skincare company or a skincare product. When you think about the skincare product that you're starting, what is it that makes it unique? What ingredient is in that skincare that will make it beneficial to somebody else compared to what's in the market? What is the emotional transformation that skincare product will have on somebody? Is it going to help treat severe skin conditions, or will help elevate somebody's confidence? And who would benefit from this skincare person? Is it a teenager? Is it a mature skin person? Is it somebody experiencing anti-aging? Who is going to benefit from this product? Then the second thing is, now you go back to understanding the customer. What are they thinking? What do they value when it comes to skincare? How are they currently shopping in this skincare category? Are they buying multiple products? Are they using different cleansers, different moisturizers, different toners? Like, what is their current way of being in this space? And what is your narrative to come and show them that what you're currently doing is incorrect, and this is the solution to the problem that you're facing? Once you now understand that target customer really in and out, is finding where they are, right? Where are they consuming their content? Where are they shopping? Is it online? Is it offline? Is it in home channels? Is it in spas? Is it in boutiques? And why are they buying it from there? Because a lot of times you will notice that people who buy products in boutiques sort of tend to value handmade, local products. They really value the the ingredients that get into a particular product. And now you need to know where they buy, because it influences where you place your product or where you market. And if they're buying online, how is their buying behavior when it comes to skincare? Is it the type of person who will really spend time on a social media platform, scope out your content, look at how you use your product, and then decide to buy? Or will they require consultation, right? If they do require consultation, then a skincare consultation should be part of your marketing strategy so that you can get them. And then now, once you've understood where they're really, really spending time in, and you're honing in on your marketing, now you start thinking about, where can I take this beyond where I'm going to start it at? So the steps are very simple. It's understanding the product, understanding the customer in and out, understanding where the customer shops and how they consume content, what is their buying behavior, and then testing that out for a period of time before you start investing in so many other complicated marketing strategies.
Okay. So for somebody who perhaps has come up with an idea and they've just heard this message, how do they go about engaging with those people? Would you expect them to go to the very locations where the people are buying products, start asking them questions? Is that seen to be intrusive in any way? Or, what's the best way of gathering that data?
In the e-commerce space, the first thing you can do if you're in the market research phase is really understanding the communities that your audience actually spends time in. Are they in Facebook groups? Are they in some LinkedIn communities? Are they listening to Clubhouse sessions and recordings? It's really finding out, where do they spend time, and engaging with them in a way that you're not selling, like you're really curious. What's your current skincare routine? And that's just a basic question you can ask. Then people will respond, and you'll be like, why are you doing a 5-step process? Then they'll tell you, it's because somebody marketed this to me. Has it been working for you? Yeah, they'll probably tell you no. Why isn't it working for you? It's a very complicated process. I need a very simple routine, and I cannot find a company that does that. Right? So you're pulsing these questions on other people's platforms. If you're bold enough, and if you're really getting into this thing, like I mentioned before, for the long haul, start putting some of this content and questions on your own platform, right? Then, because once you put this content on your own platform, the algorithm has a way of getting you exposed. So you're going to attract people who will be like, oh, she's speaking my language. I hate my 5-step skincare routine. I don't understand why I do it. So you're starting to attract people through your education. And little do you know, your community starts growing. So you're building a community of raving fans. And then the minute you launch your product, people are ready to buy.
Right. It's a bit of a hearts and minds situation then.
Exactly.
Okay. And how important is it to understand the competition and how they're behaving and what their features and benefits are?
It's important to understand the competition so that you are aware of where the market is heading towards. But don't look at competition to copy or mimic exactly what you're doing. When I worked for the big brands, we really looked at our competitions to know, where is the market trending? What are the consumer behaviors? If we noticed a competition was launching new flavors, our team would be on the research side looking at, why have they launched this new flavor? What's this trend that's coming up? And use that to really inform the trajectory of your brand. But just because a competitor is doing a particular strategy, it doesn't mean that you need to be doing it right now. Look at what they're doing as inspiration, but be crystal clear and laser focused on what you need to do at the stage of business that you are in right now.
I understand. So what we're gathering here is an awful lot of information. And some people struggle with how to put this into a format that they can use it in a sensible way. So you have a lot of information, you're trying to do some analysis. What kind of tools and techniques do you think are quite good for the home entrepreneur, so to speak, to use?
Before we get into the tools and techniques, you have to ask yourself, what problem are you solving? right? You have to ask yourself, what's the question? Like, what's the problem I'm solving? Am I solving a product problem? Am I solving a marketing problem? Am I solving a pricing problem, a promotional problem, or a sales problem? Once you understand what problem you're solving, then you need to ask yourself, what's the solution that I'm trying to get to? Am I trying to get to an easy solution? Am I trying to get to a complicated solution? And once you have an understanding, then the tools will now make sense. So if you're looking at your marketing and you're trying to understand, where's my traffic source coming? Then you go to Google Analytics. If you're looking at your pricing and you're like, I just do not know my price elasticity, I just do not know whether my products are making money, whether I'm making profit, you go to your sales data, you look at your promotions you've been running, and then you calculate, okay, how much am I making without promotion and with promotion? Then you're like, okay, now I have a pricing issue. So the tools vary based on the question that you're trying to solve.
Yeah. So I'm just thinking about the people who have been out there and done all their research and said they're probably quite overwhelmed. They expected this to be quite a simple exercise as you are around the kitchen table, but then you've gone out, followed your process there to get this information, and they think, well, how do I apply this to my product? And it could be quite daunting, I should think. And there's all these different questions you've asked, and there's all these different answers. And I suspect some of the feedback might be contradictory as well, because one person's like is another person's dislike quite often. Yeah. How do you try and sift that kind of information through? Do you just go with the majority response, or how do you deal with that?
Is this in reference to, let's say you're thinking about starting a product and you don't know how to get started?
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So if you're thinking about how to start a product-based business, the best way to do this is to just get started. And why do I say that? Because when you're in the initial development and concept stages, in your head, you already know what you're trying to do. There's no amount of research that's going to give you any new information. Your gut already knows what this product is supposed to do. Test it out with family, friends, relatives. Let them give you their own feedback. Document that feedback. What is it they like about the product? How is the transformation? Use that feedback to translate it to an online platform. Pick one channel. Are you going to be on Instagram? Start putting that information out there. Because the biggest mistake people who are starting this journey make is thinking that they need to know so many things in order to get started. You already know enough. All you need to do is trust yourself to put this information, to put your conviction, to put your education, to put your benefits out into the market and let the market respond. Because if you're constantly researching, you're going to always be in analysis paralysis and you won't even get to the answer to the solution or the problem you're trying to get. You know what I'm saying? Because everything is just stuck in your head. So do it. And when you're starting, you don't need the complicated systems. You don't need no website. You don't need to start running any paid ads. What you're trying to do is validate your concept. How are you going to validate your concept? If people buy and people get transformation, and it's a transformation that you deep down knew that you wanted people to experience, you already have a product and a business.
Yeah. So quite often it's getting past that risk or fear of failure as being the biggest hurdle, because we all see people I've done it myself, is that you research, but you never get off that treadmill. Because you never think you know enough, you've learned enough, and you don't want to appear as foolish when you go out there and expose yourself. Really, you're really putting yourself on the spotlight, so to speak, and that's pretty scary stuff. If you're a seasoned professional and you're out there talking to people and you've done this before, then that's completely different to a newbie, so to speak, who are trying to attempt this.
But one thing I always tell people is failure is part of the entrepreneurship journey. Every time you fail in entrepreneurship, you actually realize you learned so much, and that lesson is what catapults you to the next level. It's literally part of the cycle. And when you're getting into this journey, embrace failing. I literally embrace failing because I know, because I failed this time, the next thing is going to be next level. And you have to have that appetite. You have to have that understanding, because you're birthing something that is inside of you, and the market is what's going to tell you whether it's going to work or not work. And if it's not working, there's a reason why. So you're going to take the lessons from the why to solve the problem that's currently happening. It's just part of the process.
Yeah. Okay. When you mentioned some of the products there that perhaps could be launched, the creams and so forth. Now, one thing that seems quite important is how it's visually appealing, perhaps a little bit different. So the packaging, we've all seen the programs on TV, like The Apprentice that's in the UK and so on and so forth. And you see people huddled around a computer screen with a graphic designer and so on and so forth. And you see lots of conflict in those because everybody's got a different opinion. Again, when you come to yourself and your own product, perhaps you can be the person who's making the decision. But how do you know you're making the right ones? What sort of ideas should you think of? What sort of techniques should you use? How do you get a steer on what's the right kind of packaging that might be appropriate?
When it comes to packaging, I actually think it's the most simplest thing to create in your business because the formula and the framework is already there. So identify your product category, go to the store. Literally go to the store, a retail store, go to your competitive shelf set, look at what your competitors are doing that are on shelf and mimic the exact same thing. Because if it's been approved by the buyer, it means that it has met the standards for a consumer to purchase. And to be honest, I think people don't think about it. I want you to pull out the physical products you currently have in your house right now, and you will notice the psychology and the science is exactly the same. So copy and paste that with your product name, with your brand, with your product photography, and with the features and benefits that matter. We don't need to reinvent the wheel. Spend your time and energy really redefining your marketing and understanding how can I make my messaging more magnetic.
Yeah, and that's a key point there. How do you make your messaging magnetic? Now, that's a really difficult one for somebody who has no experience with this. They've just come up with a concept and idea, and perhaps they've got some samples, whatever. How do you, there's words like copy, for example. How do you get the right wording that is the hook that gets people to look at your product, read about your product, to look at your posts? How do you go about that?
To get that hook, you have to know your customer in and out. You have to know their fears. You have to know their frustrations. You have to know their desire. You have to know their wants. You have to know their needs and speak the things that they're going through. You know your customer. A great example is skincare. I'm going to use skincare again. If you're selling a skincare product that really helps with clearing acne or dealing with hyperpigmentation, and you experienced that when you were growing up and that's why you were creating this product, you know how you felt when you had acne. You know how you felt when you had eczema. You know what you were doing when you had those severe skin conditions. Were you hiding in makeup? Call it out. Basically, speak your truth. Were you using too many products? Speak your truth. When you use those too many products, what were the repercussions? Speak the truth. Magnetic messaging comes from you speaking your truth and making sure that it aligns with your audience. Speak to their fears, speak to their triggers, speak the things that they're thinking about, but they're not saying. Because at the end of the day, you want your audience to come to any of your assets and be like, how does she know me? This is exactly what I'm going through. If your audience says this is exactly what they're going through, you've spoken, you've literally triggered their fears, their desires, and their wants. That's how you create magnetic messaging. But unfortunately, in the space right now, people just want to keep it clean, keep it easy, just talk about how my skincare product is very clean. It's made of natural ingredients. Everybody is saying that. What makes you unique?
Yeah, exactly. And that's the scary thing. The competition is absolutely rife, isn't it? You can't look at anything on social media these days without seeing 10 different variants almost of these things. And to stand out is quite a skill. Is that when people should be turning to experts like yourself, or should they just go with it and risk it being wrong?
It depends on yourself. If you're the kind of person who really wants to get things right from the get-go, high out. Like, I'm that person. When I got into this journey, I didn't figure anything out. I identified people who knew what they were doing had the level of success that I wanted, and I paid for that service in order to expedite my growth. But if you're the person who's not in a position to hire mentors like myself, really get out of your comfort zone and call out the things that matter to you. Speak out your convictions, speak out the uniqueness of your product, speak out about your story. Lots of people have really unique stories that they're very scared of sharing outside. Be vulnerable. Remember, it's vulnerability that sells, and then credibility complements the vulnerability. That's what people want to connect with. Right now, it's all about how do you humanize and personify your brand? Because we're tired of the technology, the bots, the machines talking to us. We're looking for that human connection. As long as somebody can feel the personification, human connection, the money will follow after.
Do you ever get involved in the manufacturing and distribution of new products? When you're working with those suppliers at all to making sure they create what your dream is?
No, I don't work with manufacturers. My zone of genius is just selling what a manufacturer has already done. I'll brand it for you.
Okay. So let's say now the person, the business, the entrepreneur has found that company, that supplier. It makes sense to me that you have a number of prototypes and samples produced and you test the market.
Yeah.
How do you think is the best way of testing the market, particularly if you're more digitally focused with your posting and so forth? You need to get out and see people and put things in people's hands, I guess. What's a good way of going about that?
The scrappy way right now is starting with family and friends. Within your family and friends, you have somebody who probably is experiencing what you're trying to solve. Start that like that. If you choose to go into the digital space, before you get any prototype, before you get any samples, begin putting this messaging that I talked about out there and begin building that community. Begin engaging, begin collaborating with other partners. If you're in the beauty space, can you collaborate with somebody in the haircare space? How would those collaborations work? And get yourself exposed to other people's platforms as you build yours. Then once you've noticed, okay, I do have some traction, people are responding to my videos, people are responding to my posts, then be like, we have a few samples ready. We're looking for 5 or 10 people to test these samples. If this is you, comment below and I'm going to reach out to you. And that's literally how you start.
Right. Okay. You mentioned earlier on about pricing, and I see quite often when people go out with their new version of something or something special, the tendency is for people to pitch a price that is less than everybody else. Nobody will buy my product unless it's cheaper than everybody else. Is that the right mentality to think about, or how do you go about pricing things correctly for your product for that market?
The first thing that you really have to understand is really bake in all the costs that you've had to incur to bring this product to life. If you have the raw materials, really factor in the labor, what's going to take you to bring this product to the market, to fulfill this product, and to actually distribute it. Also consider overhead costs. If you're making it at home, you're literally paying electricity, you're paying for the space, you're paying for the gas. Factor that in and understand that the cost of making your product is your springboard to profitability. Just because you've identified your costs, this is not your chance to now just mark up by 2x. Now, this is when brand development work comes in. Who's my customer? What's the perceived value? How does my customer buy? What matters the most to them? If they're really talking to a value-based buyer or a buyer who really is cautious about what they buy and what they put in and out of their body, pricing is the last thing. So price your product based on the perceived value of this customer and also the perceived value of your product. If you're doing skincare, like what's a price tag to selling confidence? What's the price tag to selling a higher self-image? What's the price tag to promoting local-based businesses or elevating minority-owned business? Like, what's that price tag? And I want you to now price based, oh my God, yeah, I'm really helping somebody build their confidence. It is a $90 skincare product. They're going to buy it because I know deep down right now, their confidence is really low. And this is their path for them to become more confident.
Yeah, I'm thinking about some products. Let's say you're going to the supermarket and you've got this huge range of products, and you'll tend to find the big brand names, let's say the higher price points, but the own brand supermarket style product, the equivalent, are much lower. Now, does that have to be the case that your product that hasn't been on the market at all, isn't well established, isn't a big brand or anything like that, always has to compete at the lower end? Or should you perhaps be a bit braver and, try and go head to head in respect to pricing with other brands that are already out there and well established?
That's a very great question. But what I usually tell people, every brand is unique. And every brand has a certain price point because of the strategy behind it. I worked for big brands, and within big brands, we had very high priced tier products and very low priced tier products, but there was a strategy behind it. The low price tier product was attracting a certain segment of a population that really did not have money. They were very price sensitive. And because that's the audience that they were talking to, even the efforts and the ingredients that were put into that product matched the price. But when you're talking to, we're selling high price product, we're speaking to a more mature customer, a more aware customer, where their shopping is very different. So they're not looking at the price; they're looking what's the value of this product, what's the benefit, and it goes back to you really understanding understanding the value and the benefit and owning it. It's one thing to understand, and it's another thing to own it. Because if you own it, you will claim it. If you don't own it, you won't claim it. So you're constantly now competing on price.
Yeah.
And you competing on price, you are not going to grow your brand because you're not going to have cash flow. You're not going to have profits. And without profits, you just don't have a business.
Yeah, no business.
Let's just call it. Exactly. Yeah.
Okay, let's touch on the marketing side now. And I guess I'm thinking now from going from a local to global. Now, people will initially put their products out, obviously within their own territory. One would expect it's their homegrown turf. But I guess one has to think about at the same time that at some point, cross fingers and toes, everything else, that it will grow and it will become a global type product. So should you be worried about changing that imagery and everything else at a later stage as it gathers pace? Or do you need to get it kind of right first time so it suits all markets from day one?
You're never going to get it right. Your business and your products will evolve. What was working 5 years ago is probably not working now. What you need to do is ensure that your message stays consistent, your certain assets for your brand stay consistent, but be open to change. You've seen the evolution even with big brands, like old packaging that was done 30 years ago is not the same packaging, but the infrastructure, the memory structures, some of the assets are the same. It's just an enhancement, but the messaging has never changed. So just know things are never going to be the same. So get started, let the market inform you, continue growing. You're also going to grow as an entrepreneur, and give yourself room and an opportunity to embrace something new.
Yeah, and it's good to evolve and show that you're progressive perhaps, and you're taking on board the latest things and so forth. Yeah. Okay. Now, let's just say that your target, you decide that you want to sell to large retailers and get them to put it on their shelves. Now, for somebody who's fairly new in business, and maybe they've been relatively successful selling to one-to-ones or to smaller businesses, shall we say, almost knocking on the door. How does one go about approaching some of the big boys out there and actually trying to get shelf space when there's other competitors as well? First
of all, it's understanding that how to work with a retailer varies by country, varies by state. And if you're in the online space, it's being on platforms like Range Me. If you are offline, it's understanding that each retailer, some retailers have workshops, so you can apply for those workshops. Some retailers have vendor days where they're literally looking out for new and emerging brands. Some retailers go to expos. It's really understanding how can I be present and physical in the places where these buyers are actually looking out for new businesses. So it's knowing that first and then being there. It's one thing to know, but it's actually competing and getting to those places. Then when you get into those places is really communicating your position, what makes you unique, really articulating how your product works. Because I was part of the retail team where we would go to expos. And when we would go to expos, we never went with a badge. like, oh, I'm a retail buyer. No. We actually went as regular consumers. And we would interview the CEOs, tell us a little bit about your product. What's the benefit of this product? How do you use it? So you're trying to see, can they sell to me? Can they persuade me? I would buy the product as a regular consumer, go out, smell it, test it, then be like, oh, there's something to it. Then invite them for an interview, right? Invite them for an interview. And in this interview, they're literally just going to ask you, what's the benefit of your product? What do the margins look like? What's your capacity right now? Have you been in other retailers? Because they want to see if they're willing to bet on this person. Because you have to understand, when a buyer is talking to you, they have a product on shelf that they want to replace with yours. So they have to know, A, first of all, can this make me money? Because I'm taking a risk. B, will my existing customers, because every retailer has its own different sets of customers and target, but will they be attracted to this? C, where am I going to place this product? D, can I trust this entrepreneur to do the work when it comes to marketing? Because what retailers do is that they give you a platform to display your product, but a lot of times the marketing comes from the business owner. And you have to be aware of these things. And C, do I have the financial cash flow? Because it doesn't mean that once a retailer buys from you, that they're going to pay you immediately. They all have different credit terms. Sometimes it's 30 days, sometimes it's 120 days, and you have to be willing to work with that. So being aware of these things is what you need to assess and ask yourself, am I willing to have this additional channel and additional platform in my business? And can I manage it?
Yeah, I think that's a key thing. The expectations of the buyer, the bigger the business, quite often those expectations increase. As you say, you mentioned payment terms. You know, we all hear about the big boys saying, oh, we'll pay you on 60, 90, as you say, 120 days. Now, for a small person who has to invest in a product and perhaps make it in large scale and not getting paid for nearly 3 or 4 months, it's a pretty scary proposition.
Exactly.
And they don't have the leverage to really argue as well. So people have to be very careful when they're getting into that situation.
Exactly.
Okay. Big brand strategies, something I'm quite interested in, but there's one of the questions that I believe I've seen you mention before about what they know and that you don't. So what do big brands know that growing or emerging brands don't? What are those key points?
The first of all, big brands know the power of a brand. They lead with the brand first versus product. While the small brands lead with product, then think about the brand next. Big brands spend millions and some brands billions of dollars investing in their brand. And the reason they invest so much in branding is because they really understand that branding is why people buy you and marketing is how people buy you. For how people find you. If the why is not solid enough, there is nobody that is going to give you their dollars. And so understanding that customer in and out, I can't tell you how many times I've spent in focus groups, in market research rooms, just really understanding that customer, because once you know that customer, creating marketing content becomes so easy and so magnetic. Then the other thing is they really understand the power of humanizing a brand. They really understand the power of connection with the customer through people, right? For small businesses, most of us want to be behind the brand. Most of us don't want to show our faces, tell our stories, connect with our buyers because we are afraid. But big brands, what they do is they have a budget where we can pay influencers. Like we knew we could tap into this budget and pay influencers, but we were paying influencers because we needed human interaction. We needed user-generated content. Because you don't have that budget right now, that is going to come from you.
Yeah.
Because that's what somebody wants to see, that your buyer wants to see.
Yes, it's all about engaging people at an individual level kind of thing, isn't it? To get that emotion. If they haven't got the emotion, then I guess you just won't connect with people.
Exactly.
Well, seeing the time's tracking on, I'm sure people want to hear a lot more about what you've got to say. So before my last question, do you want to tell people how they get hold of you, where they find your work, where they find your teaching?
Yes. So if you want to learn more about me, you can go to my website. It's startwardconsulting.com, which is STARTWARD.com. If you want to connect with me personally, you can come to my Instagram page. It's Maureen Mwangi, MWANGI official.
Okay. The one thing I'm going to finish on, because as I mentioned before we started this, that I've been listening to your own podcast. Very good. Well done.
Yes.
The Product Entrepreneur. So would you like to tell the listeners what would they expect to find on that podcast, where they would find it, and really how to engage with you on that?
Yes. So I also have a podcast called The Product Entrepreneur Show. And this podcast is on all streaming platforms. You can find us on Stitcher, Google, Spotify, and Apple. And this podcast really focuses on the principles and the strategies required to launch, build, grow, and scale a physical product-based businesses. I come in and share high-level strategic insights. I also bring in amazing guest experts around the globe who come and share their experiences, bring in entrepreneurs who share their experiences as well. But my purpose of this podcast is to really give people the insights and the tools and the information that they can use on a day-to-day basis to transform their business, but also transform their lives.
Great. And that's been going for some more now?
It's actually, we're going on a year in a month today. I launched it into November 2020.
Congratulations then.
Yeah.
Nearly there.
Thank you.
Fantastic. Okay. Well, that's been quite a lot of information to take in today. I think that's been really, really helpful. It's scary how much work you've got to do and people don't realize that.
Yes.
So I think you've certainly given people a heads up, and it'd be crazy not to listen to your podcast to gather more information and have longer to take notes, I guess. So is there anything you'd like to finish off with? Is there any particular, should we say, success of note you'd like to share with everybody?
If you're this entrepreneur who's literally in this space where you feel like you've really had this idea in your mind for a period of time, I really would challenge you to listen in and lean into that vision. There's so many people out there who are looking for the transformation that your product is going to provide. Step into this journey in faith and give yourself the opportunity to solve somebody else's problem, because as many a times as entrepreneurs, we sabotage our own growth, our own success by using some of the limiting beliefs that we've had for a very long period of time. And I just want you to get into this space knowing that you're doing something for somebody and this is actually bigger than you. So give yourself that opportunity and walk into this journey with lots of faith, lots of grace, because it's beautiful and it's gorgeous.
Lovely way to finish. Well, that's great. Thank you very much for sharing your time with us today. And hopefully we'll hear more about you and people will now join your podcast and listen to all these different things you have to say.
Thank you so much. Thank you for giving me this opportunity.
No, it's a wonderful experience. Thank you very much. Take care then, Maureen.
You too. Have a good one.
Thank you. Bye. So there's another Real Life Buyer podcast. I do hope you enjoyed it and it's given you some ideas and inspiration for greater action and achievement. If you are a purchasing or a supply chain professional, business owner or director, come and join my Facebook group, the Purchasing and Supply Chain Community Hub, a safe place to engage with like-minded, friendly people. See you soon. Bye.